Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you tonight about a moment, one of the quietest moments of the day, and yet one of the most powerful. It's not when the sun is high or the world is loud, but when the lights go out and the noise fades away. It's that moment when a woman lays her head down on her pillow and there's no one left to impress. No makeup, no mask, no pretending. Just her and God. This is the moment the world doesn't see, but heaven hears it loud and clear. And tonight I want to share with you 7 things women say to God before they go to sleep. And I promise you, if you stay with me until the end, you'll understand more than just what women say. You'll understand why they say it. You'll see into the heart of pain, the ache for love, the cry for strength, and the quiet whisper of faith. Because this is not just about women. It's about you. It's about us. It's about the conversations we all need to have when no one else is listening. Let's begin. 1. God, am I enough? So many women go to bed feeling like they failed, like they didn't do enough, weren't good enough, didn't look good enough. And in the stillness, they ask the question no one else hears. Am I enough? And God in His love answers, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Not perfect, but precious. Not flawless, but full of worth. 2. Heal what I can't fix. She's tried to fix the relationship, the child, the wound. But some things are too heavy. So she hands it to God with trembling hands, because she's learned some things only heaven can't mend. 3. Protect them while I sleep. A mother never stops being a mother. Even in sleep, her heart is awake, and her prayer rises like incense. Lord, protect my children. Watch over my husband. Cover my family while I can't. Because while the world sleeps, a woman's prayer stands guard. 4. Forgive me for today. She remembers the sharp words, the things left undone, the times she lost patience. And before she sleeps, she says, God, forgive me, clean my heart. Let me try again tomorrow. Not out of guilt, but out of grace. 5. Thank you for one more day. Gratitude, quiet, powerful, often unspoken. She sees the small mercies, the child's laugh, the warm meal, the friend who checked in. And before she closes her eyes, she says, thank you. Because she knows even an ordinary day is a gift. 6. Give me strength for tomorrow. She knows what's coming, the weight of responsibility, the battle inside her mind, the things she carries silently. So she whispers, Lord, give me strength. And that strength doesn't always come in thunder, but in quiet resilience. 7, stay with me. This one is soft, intimate, holy. Stay with me, God. I don't want to do life alone. And in that final breath before sleep, there's a longing, not just for rest, but for reassurance that God is near. Friend, if you've ever whispered one of these prayers, you're not alone. And if you've never prayed a word, maybe tonight is the night to begin. Because when the world goes silent and your soul begins to speak, God listens. And maybe, just maybe, what you say in the dark becomes the light that carries you through There's something sacred about the moments before a woman falls asleep. The world around her has quieted. The noise of the day has faded, and in that stillness, she begins to speak, not always with her lips, but with her heart. These are the whispered words, the secret conversations between a woman and her God. In this moment, her soul steps forward, unfiltered and honest. She doesn't have to pretend to be strong. She doesn't have to have the answers. The expectations, the roles, the responsibilities, they all pause for a brief moment, and she allows herself to be seen, truly seen. It's in this moment that heaven leans close, because what she says when no one else is listening, that's the most real part of her. She may ask for peace. She may cry out for healing. She may say nothing at all, and yet still lay her heart bare before the one who knows her better than anyone. These secret conversations aren't scripted. They come from the deep well of her daily experience. The disappointments she couldn't show, the fears she carried all day long, the love she gave without return, the battles she fought that no one noticed. And somehow, in that secret stillness, she believes God hears her, not because she shouts, but because he listens to the quiet. These moments are holy because they strip away the surface and go straight to the soul. A woman's nighttime conversation with God is often the truest reflection of who she is and where she stands. When all the roles and masks are removed, what's left is a heart reaching upward, sometimes broken, sometimes bold, but always longing for something. She's the caretaker, the professional, the friend, the peacemaker. She smiles when she wants to cry. She encourages others while silently carrying her own burdens. She answers to expectations, fulfills responsibilities, and keeps going even when her spirit feels worn down. But when the night comes, when the last light is turned off and no one else is watching, something changes. The mask slips off. The version of her that the world sees fades, and the real woman begins to surface. It's in the dark that truth has the space to breathe. No makeup, no social filter, no pressure to perform, just the raw and honest soul. She doesn't have to be okay anymore. She doesn't have to hide the fear that's been pressing on her chest, the doubts that keep circling in her mind, the ache she's pushed down deep all day. It all comes rushing to the surface when the musk falls. And in that quiet moment, often with a whisper or even just a thought, she reaches out to God, not as the perfect woman, not as the strong one, but because God isn't drawn to the performance, he's drawn to the truth. And in those unfiltered nighttime prayers, something holy happens. She becomes vulnerable, and in her vulnerability, she becomes strong. The tears she sheds alone become prayers soaked in sincerity. The silence becomes sacred ground. The darkness becomes the backdrop for divine conversation. In the night, there's no audience, just a heart and her maker. And that is where healing begins, not in pretending, but in laying everything down without fear, without shame, and knowing, truly knowing, that God sees, God understands, and God never turns away. There is a quiet strength in a woman's prayer that often goes unnoticed by the world, but never ignored by heaven. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be eloquent. Sometimes It's just a whisper in the dark or a tear falling on the pillow. But make no mistake, when a woman prays, things move. Hearts soften, doors open. Storms begin to settle. Her prayer isn't always for herself. Most of the time, it's for the people she loves more than life itself. She prays for her children, their future. She prays for her spouse, her family, her friends. She carries their names before the throne of grace like sacred offerings. And though she may never stand behind a pulpit or wear a title, she stands in the gap every single night, and her prayers carry weight in the spiritual realm. You see, the world often measures power by volume and visibility. But heaven measures it by faith. And faith is what lives in the prayer of a woman who still believes even when everything around her says she shouldn't. Her strength doesn't come from having it all together. It comes from knowing where to take the pieces. She knows she can't fix it all, but she also knows the one who can. And so she lifts it up night after night, even when she's tired, even when she sees no change, even when it hurts. That's power. The power of belief, the power of love poured out in silence. You may not see the results in the moment, but God sees the heart behind the words. And in the kingdom of God, no prayer is ever wasted, especially the ones whispered in the quiet of the night. What a woman says to God before she sleeps is not just a prayer. It's a glimpse into the deepest parts of her soul. The words she speaks to heaven aren't polished or rehearsed. They come from the heart, unfiltered, unguarded, and often unspoken aloud. These are the things she hides during the day, the emotions she keeps tucked behind a smile. But at night, when the world grows still, her soul begins to speak. And in that sacred conversation, everything is laid bare. Her fears rise to the surface. Her longings float up from beneath the busyness. Her hopes, though sometimes fragile, begin to flicker again. And it's in that space between sleep and surrender that God gets the clearest view of her heart. It's not the version of herself she presents to the world. It's not the confident tone, the strong exterior, or the perfectly managed life. No, it's the little girl inside her who still wants to be loved, still wants to be held, still wants to believe that everything will be okay. That's what God sees. That's what he hears. And when she whispers those simple, soul-deep prayers like, "Help me, I'm tired," or "Please don't let me go," they are not weak words. They are holy, they are brave, because they come from the center of who she is. You can learn more about a woman in 5 minutes of her nighttime prayers than in 5 years of watching her from the outside. Because this is when the pretending stops. This is when the truth comes out. And this is when heaven leans in, not to judge, but to hold her soul in hands that never let go. There's a sacred transformation that often happens in the dark, one the world rarely sees. A woman may enter her nighttime prayers in pieces, carrying a broken heart, a weary mind, and a soul worn thin. She may lie there feeling like everything she gave during the day wasn't enough. She may replay her failures, her regrets, her missteps. She may feel like she's unraveling. But somehow, in the presence of God, something begins to shift. She starts off broken, but by the time she finishes speaking with her Creator, there's a quiet boldness rising in her chest. Not a boldness rooted in pride, but one grounded in grace. It's the kind of boldness that says, I don't have to be strong on my own. because she may come trembling with nothing but fragments of faith, but she leaves with her head lifted, her spirit steady. There's power in that private exchange. Power that builds resilience in the face of fear, clarity in the fog of confusion, and courage in the middle of chaos. This is what people don't understand about women of prayer. They think she's just being emotional. They don't see the warfare taking place. They don't hear the strength growing in the silence. They don't know that her whispered, "God, I need you," is stronger than any shouted speech. Because that's where the boldness comes from, not the absence of pain, but the presence of God in her pain. And every night she returns to that place, and every night he meets her there. And she rises again, maybe not louder, maybe not noticed, but stronger than she was before. When a woman talks to God before she sleeps, it's not always in a formal religious way. It's not about rituals, memorized prayers, or checking off a spiritual box. It's about real life, raw, unedited, and deeply personal. She doesn't speak to impress anyone. She speaks because there's nowhere else to place the weight she carries. Her prayer is often a sigh, a whisper, or even silence with tears. It's not scripted, it's survival. She's not thinking about theology in those moments. She's thinking about how to make it through another day, how to keep her family together, how to breathe through the fear that comes when everything feels like it's falling apart. These prayers aren't polished, but they are powerful, because they come from the very core of who she is. And that's what makes them sacred. You see, this isn't about religion. This isn't about tradition. This is about a woman in her most vulnerable state connecting with the only one who truly sees her. She may not go to church every week. She may not have all the answers, but she knows one thing. When everything else in life feels unstable, she can still talk to God. That conversation, no matter how brief, becomes an anchor. It becomes a release valve for the pressure she's held inside all day. It's not about being holy, it's about being human. And God meets her there, in that honest space. That's why these prayers matter, because they are real, they are consistent, and they are spoken from a place of truth. And in a world full of noise and pretending, truth is what reaches heaven fastest. It's not religion that sustains her, it's relationship. And it's not routine that gives her peace. It's the simple, faithful act of turning to God when no one else is around. So now you've heard them, the 7 quiet confessions, the whispered hopes, the sacred conversations that women carry into the night. And maybe, just maybe, you've heard yourself in those words. Maybe you've asked, am I enough? Maybe you've pleaded for strength, begged for healing, cried for your family, or simply whispered, God, stay with me. These aren't just phrases. These are lifelines. These are faith in motion. These are the invisible battles fought on tear-soaked pillows. Battles that don't make headlines, but shake the gates of heaven. And let me tell you something. God hears everyone. Not one word goes unnoticed. Not one tear is wasted. Not one moment of weakness is dismissed by the one who gives strength in return. You don't have to be loud to be heard. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to be honest. And if you're listening right now and your heart is aching, if you've been carrying something too heavy to hold, tonight you can let it go. Say what you need to say. Whisper it, cry it, think it. God is near. He always has been, and He's listening. Because in the silence of night, when the masks fall and the world grows quiet, it's when your soul speaks loudest, and that's when heaven leans in. Amen.